The day my whole life changed forever started just like any other normal Tuesday morning. I was at my job at a large construction site, helping to finish up some of the final safety checks on a brand new building. Everything felt regular and okay until a massive, heavy steel beam shifted without any warning at all. I can still remember the sound it made, a sharp, loud crack that I felt deep inside my bones. The pain was unlike anything I had ever felt before in my life. I heard my co-workers shouting for help and calling for an ambulance. Their voices sounded like they were very far away as I tried my best to stay awake and breathe. A few hours later, I woke up in a quiet hospital bed. My left leg was wrapped in a thick, heavy white cast that went all the way from my thigh down to my ankle. The doctor came in and spoke to me with a soft voice. He told me that the break was very bad. I was going to need a big surgery and then many months of hard work to learn how to walk again. My head was spinning with all the scary news, and the very first person I wanted to talk to was my fiancée, Ashley. I called her, expecting to hear her voice filled with love and worry. I truly thought she might even be on her way to the hospital, all ready to sit by my side. But when I told her what had happened, there was just a long, cold silence on the other end of the line. Then she let out a long sigh that made my heart sink. She told me it was just a broken leg, and that she was not going to cancel her big vacation to Bali over it. I honestly thought she was making a bad joke, but she was not laughing. Before she hung up the phone, she told me that I would survive a few weeks without her. As the call ended, I felt like the woman I was planning to marry had suddenly become a total stranger. I could not understand what had changed her so much or why she was being so cold to me when I was hurting. Ashley left for her vacation the very next morning. She did not even come to the hospital to say goodbye or see if I needed anything. Instead, she sent me a short text message right before she got on her plane. She told me not to make her feel guilty because she had planned this trip with her friends for a very long time. I sat there in my hospital bed, staring at that message while a kind nurse helped me figure out how to stand up using metal crutches. I could not stop wondering how someone who promised to be there for me in sickness and in health could just disappear when things got difficult. The days that followed were much harder than I ever imagined they would be. When you can only use one leg, the simplest parts of life become huge challenges. Try and take a shower, making a cup of morning coffee, or even walking up the 3 small steps to my front door felt like trying to climb a giant mountain. I was exhausted, lonely, and in a lot of pain. My younger sister, Megan, saw how much I was struggling. She decided to take time off from her job, even though she was not getting paid for it, just to come over and help me. She did my laundry, made sure I had good food to eat, and kept me company when the house felt too quiet. While Megan was doing all this kind work, Ashley's social media was full of photos of beautiful sunsets on the beach, fancy hotels, and pictures of her smiling with her friends. Every time I saw a new photo, it was a painful reminder of where her heart was. It felt like she was telling the whole world that a vacation was more important than the person she was supposed to spend her life with. On the 5th night I was in the hospital, my surgeon walked into my room. He had a very serious look on his face, and he sat down in a chair right next to my bed. He asked me if my fiancée had been answering her phone. I felt a bit embarrassed and told him she was far away on a beach in Bali. The doctor nodded slowly and then explained something that made my heart stop. He told me that during the surgery to fix my broken leg, the medical team had found something they were not even looking for. A routine scan of my hip had shown a very fast-growing lump near my bone. It was cancer. He told me it was still in the early stages, but if we had waited even a little longer to find it, the outcome could have been very different. In a strange way, he said the accident at the construction site might have actually saved my life because it brought me to the hospital. My mind went completely blank. I was not even thinking about my broken leg anymore. All I could think about was Ashley laughing by a swimming pool while I was sitting here getting the scariest news of my life. The hospital staff had tried to call her many times because she was my main emergency contact, but she never picked up the phone. I quietly asked the doctor who had signed the permission papers for my treatment, since they could not reach her. The doctor looked at the folder in his hands and gave me an answer that changed how I saw everyone in my life. He told me it was my sister, Megan. She had arrived at the hospital less than 20 minutes after they called her. She stayed there all through the night, talking to the specialist and making sure I was never alone while I was asleep. Later that same evening, Megan walked into my hospital room. She was carrying a bag of clean clothes for me and a cup of my favorite coffee. She smiled at me like she had not just spent the last few days saving my life and taking care of everything. When I tried to thank her, she just shook her head and said that I was her brother, and there was never any other choice for her to make. She was always going to be there for me, no matter what. But then she got quiet and told me that Ashley had called her once. She did not call to ask how I was doing or if the surgery went well. She called to complain that people back home were making her look like a selfish person for staying on her vacation while I was in the hospital. Hearing that hurt more than the surgery or the broken bone ever could. I realized I was about to marry someone who cared more about what people thought of her than whether I was alive or dead. Over the next 2 weeks, I decided to stop looking at Ashley's photos online. I had much bigger things to worry about. I had to go to special classes to learn to walk again, and I had to meet with cancer doctors to plan my treatment. My days were filled with physical pain and big, scary decisions. Megan stayed with me through every single minute of it. She took notes when the doctors talked, so I would not forget any of the important details. Meanwhile, Ashley would send me a short text every few days. She usually asked how my leg was feeling, or told me to stay positive. She never once offered to come home early to help. Then, just 3 days before she was supposed to fly back, she sent me a picture of a wedding place she found in Bali. She said I would love it for our big day. I just looked at the screen and realized we did not have a future together anymore. She was planning a party while I was fighting for my life. The morning Ashley finally came back, she walked into my apartment looking very tan and happy. She was carrying bags of expensive gifts and telling long stories about waterfalls and fancy dinners she had enjoyed. She did not even notice that I had taken down our wedding photos or that the magazines for the ceremony were gone. She handed me a small wooden keychain and smiled like everything was perfect. I asked her to sit down because we needed to have a very serious talk. She thought I wanted to talk about the wedding, but instead, I put the hospital folder on the table. As she read the words bone tumor and cancer, the smile disappeared from her face. She started to cry and said she had no idea it was that bad. She claimed she would come home if she knew, but I reminded her that the hospital and Megan had tried to call her many times. She finally admitted that she had silenced her phone because she did not want any drama to ruin her fun time. That was the hardest part to hear. It was not that she did not know. It was that she chose not to know. I reached into the table drawer and pulled out the ring box. For a second, she looked hopeful, but I just pushed it across the table to her. I told her I was giving it back. I was not doing it because I was sick, but because I finally saw who she really was deep down. She started begging me for another chance, but my mind was made up. I walked her to the door on my crutches. She asked if there was any way to fix this, and I told her no. I told her that you do not find out how strong a relationship is when things are easy. You find out when everything falls apart. I knew I could get better from the leg injury and the cancer, but I could never fix the trust that she broke. She left the ring on the table and walked out. Now, months later, I am doing much better. My leg is healed and my health is returning. I realize that the accident did not ruin my life. It saved me from a future with the wrong person. Sometimes, the hardest moments are actually blessings in disguise.